Hi, my name is Eddie White, and in my immigrant jam, I would put Vegemite and arequipe because half Colombian, half Australian.
No me digas. O M to the G. Welcome back to Immigrant Jam, the podcast with me, your host, Lucie Pohl. Yes, we're back for a brand new, beautiful, delicious, nutritious episode. What are you doing? How are you doing? How is everybody? What are you doing right now? Are you making arepas? Little hint to where this episode is going. I'm so excited because today I have an amazing guest on the podcast coming to us live from Colombia, an amazing artist, illustrator, animator, a fashion designer as well. Yes, he's just put out a new clothing line inspired by his life in Colombia, which you can find on his website, eddiewhitejr.com. Please give a warm motherfucking welcome to Eddie White.
Gracias. Thank you for having
Eddie
me.
White, hola.
Thank
I'm
you.
not
Thank
even.
you. I'm amazed by your smoothness. You're an
Thank you.
absolute pro. I'm
I'm a
no
yep.
no ums, no R's,
Smoothness.
no none of this sort of stuff.
Well, I've done it one or two times, but here we are, and we're getting right to it because you live in Colombia and you've become sort of a mascot of Colombian culture, but you, in fact, are Australian, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. I'm Australian born and bred. I
From
moved to Colombia.
Adelaide, right?
Yeah, from Adelaide, South Australia, the capital of wine in
Mm.
Australia, and I don't drink, so that's no relevance to me.
I
But
feel you. I'm German and I don't drink beer, and
oh, there
it's
you go. Yeah,
the
exactly.
same.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm from this city of a million people. Like you got the beaches, we've got wineries. It's a pretty chill. It's a beautiful place. Completely different to Bogota, where I live now. I've
Mm.
been in Bogota for just over 4 years, and I've explored various parts of Colombia from here. But Bogota is my base, and it's kind of the polar opposite of Adelaide, which is why I love it. I think
Why?
because
Why do you say it's the polar opposite?
it's like 9 million people. You're in the mountains. There's no seaside. uh, it's cool weather all year round. It doesn't get too hot. Like it gets a bit warm some days, but never in the night. Um, there's tons of traffic. There's tons of people. There's just so much going on always that I
Mm.
think it's like walking through a moving gallery always.
Mm.
That's Bogota. And that's why I love it. I think a lot of Colombians don't like Bogota who aren't from Bogota. They go, oh, it's cold and people are rude and there's traffic. And I'm like, not to me. Like it's perfect to me because the weather is like it's not too hot, not too cold. It's delicious weather for me. And I love all the art galleries and museums and bookstores. And it's the center of culture really
Mm.
in Colombia as far as all aspects of culture, whether it's food, restaurants, books, book
Right.
fair, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, concerts. Every concert is here.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah,
like
of
you want
course.
to, if you want to see Guns N' Roses one week, Bad Bunny the next week, Bogota's
Or Guns
Bogota's
N' Roses and Bad Bunny together.
together. The
Where's the
remix.
crossover?
This is a remix.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So, full disclosure, I started seeing this Colombian guy. And in the beginning of us seeing each other, we were like lying around, and he was like, did you know that in Colombia we put cheese in our hot chocolate? And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, look. And instead of showing me a picture of cheese and hot chocolate, he showed me one of your illustrations on
Ah,
Instagram. And he was like,
that's
see,
cool.
see. And
Yeah,
he's like
it seems to be
swiping.
the in for a lot of
Yes.
relationships. I've met a lot of people in the States and Australia and Europe who have said to me, "Oh, my girlfriend sends me your drawings, or my boyfriend sends me." It's a really nice way of sharing your culture with someone through a less kind of literal, boring way of just a photograph or just
Right.
a, the
Right.
actual. I think a drawing it makes things funnier, doesn't it? It's
And
funny when
especially your drawings. But just real quick, for those people that don't, for the two people left on Earth that don't know you, you have an Instagram account that's super popular, and you basically illustrate all things Colombian culture on your Instagram account.
yeah,
What I love so much, and what I've been doing on this podcast, every single episode, I always ask my guests for their favorite saying or expression or proverb from their country, because I think that they say so much about the mentality of the people,
yeah,
and the way the language works, and the humor of the culture. And there's so much in there. A lot of the Arabic countries have like the most profoundly poetic sayings ever.
yeah.
And you focus on that a lot, as well as the food and other parts of the culture, obviously.
Mm,
So for those of you that don't know Eddie, check it out. It's so fun, and your drawings are so funny and so fun, and kind of, yeah, uh, in the true sense of like what an illustration should be, that like it
yeah,
gives like a visual to this feeling that something
yeah. And I
exists,
think that when I every time I draw a picture, I guess I'm trying to, in a simple way, because Instagram is my main art gallery in a
Right.
way. And my drawings are quite a simple style. I'm not a very sort of I don't labor over drawings and that kind of stuff. I like to kind of get them out with
I was
personality and
just about to ask
impact.
you,
Yeah,
so you just kind of, is it like the first image that pops into your head, or how do you, what's your process?
it's
What's
like
your process?
I think I gravitate towards drawing the things that pop into my head and make me smile or make me laugh or think, oh,
Right.
that's because there's so many ways you can interpret things.
Right.
When it comes to foods, yeah, I could just draw the foods, but sometimes I do. But I think if I draw a Colombian animal eating that particularly weird food combination, it seems to be a very popular kind of collision of the wildlife of the country, the food of the country, the weird things about the country. And it's like anyone can relate because it's an animal. Whereas if you draw a person, they're like, oh, she's black, I'm not black, or she's tall.
Mm,
So I try and mix it up with drawing animals and people, because I think the ones that the most impactful are actually animals doing people
mm.
things.
But is that something that you learned by trying that out, or is that something you
Yeah,
like sat down and thought about?
yeah, it is. It was just try because I used to draw more people.
Mm,
And then I was getting a lot of comments saying, oh, well, we don't, I'm plus size, or I'm
mm,
black, white, or what, and like you don't want to kind of try and appease everyone, but I
mm.
thought, how can I do it so that everyone makes like, and that's why Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and the Simpsons, or not the Simpsons because they're people, but like those characters that are
Wait,
animals.
they are?
Yeah, well, they're kind of not. They're yellow. See, they're yellow. If they were white,
Yeah. Yeah,
No,
that'd
but
be
I
a
think I
problem.
think I think animals and cartoons have always been popular for that reason, because we watch things since we're a little kid, and anyone can watch Tom and Jerry and be Tom or Jerry, or anyone can watch Roadrunner and Coyote. It's not about
Mm,
race, it's not about age,
mm,
nationality. So yeah, I like doing that when I want to kind of hit that big wide audience. But
mm.
sometimes I'm drawing specifically about the girls of Bogota, then obviously I draw them as women,
Right.
or whatever.
And with the sayings, the expressions, do you collect them? Do you have a book? Do you walk around asking
Yeah,
old
yeah.
people for expressions, or how do
I've
you
got,
how do you get all
I've
of
got,
those?
yeah, I've got a notebook, and I mean, we're talking like there's more. There's hundreds like Colombia is like Australia has a lot of expressions. I thought we had a lot of
I
expressions.
was going to ask you what's your favorite Australian one, but I'll ask you
Yeah,
that later.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of them. They're all English in origin, mainly from England or
Right.
Ireland, but
Right.
mainly Cockney. It's like Cockney rhyming,
Mm,
that kind of stuff. And but in Colombia, it's like they're either from Spain, Mexico, Colombia themselves, or other parts of Latin America. But many of them are from here, and
mm.
so I thought, oh, there must be. I'll run out of them eventually, and I've just got. They pour in every day. People tell me new variations of other ones that mean the same thing but with a different thing.
Yeah. That's
So
so
it's kind
great.
of like it's never ending, and that's
Yeah.
really cool for an artist, because you think, oh, this is like a constant source of inspiration in the
Yeah, and
language.
And it's so fun
It's so fun. Yeah. I'm
because
learning. I'm learning every day.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so I think it tells you a lot about, you know, the culture and about
Totally.
like sort of the way, you know, the Latin
Mm.
countries have a lot of like kind of I don't want to say mean, but like they like roast people, right?
Yeah, it's
Like
like
they're kind of like
it's sort of
roasty.
bullying.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
sort
It's
of
like
bullying,
border bullying.
but it's
But
like
but it's
bullying
like
someone, calling them fatty, like gordo or gorda.
right,
It's
right.
like fatty, but it's not literally meaning they're fatty. You know what I
It's like a
mean?
term
So
of endearment.
it's like a term of endearment. But if you
Right.
call someone that in the US or Australia, it's like you get slapped with a harassment. Like,
Right.
you know, whereas Colombians,
Right.
what I love about Colombians is they haven't lost that sense of, it's sort of like it's a little bit infantile. Like it's a
Mm.
little bit infantile and a little bit it's silly. Like their
Silly,
humor is very
yes.
silly, but they enjoy life and they can laugh at themselves. They can laugh at other people. They don't take everything so seriously, which a lot of the world I think has gone down that path a bit too far, where you know everything's offensive to every single person in US, Australia, you know, Europe, like at the moment. Whereas in Colombia, it feels like there's a degree of that with some people, but most people are like, oh yeah, that's just a joke. Well, that's, you know what I mean? Like, there's still
Mm.
just a joke,
Hmm.
because unless they're really harmful, awful kind of expressions, which I don't draw, because they do exist, those ones too, that are like overtly like classist or racist or homophobic.
Right.
They're not good, and obviously I don't really shine a light on those. But most of them are very harmless.
Walk us through how this happened. So you, I think from what I read is you got stuck in Colombia during the
Yeah,
pandemic.
yeah. So I'd visited in 2017. I'd visited for just 3 weeks. I had a really good friend in Bogota, and I also had my heart was with a Colombian girl at that point, and she
Hmm.
sort of stopped my heart. And then my friend, who became my best friend, he was just a good friend. We'd met years before, so I had this sort of really nice introduction through two different ways to Colombia. And then I returned in 2020, thinking I would perhaps spend 6 months here, maybe a year, and base myself here and explore Colombia and Latin America. And then a month after I arrived, the pandemic hit
Wow.
hit the world, hit Colombia.
Right. Yeah, we had
I
it
kind
here
of got
too.
I got out. Yeah, I literally got out 3 weeks before I wouldn't have been able to get out of Australia. So it was kind of very fortuitous for me in that way, because I knew when I left Australia that this was like a new chapter for me. I wasn't going to turn around hell or high water and be like, oh, I'm going to go back to Australia. So I stayed in Colombia and got stuck in a way in Cartagena, which is a city on the Caribbean coast. And it's traditionally a very touristic place. It's beautiful colonial place, but there was no one there. So it was like
Amazing.
strange movie set, walking around and like
That's so cool.
this Caribbean movie set. Yeah, so that was cool. But that's when I really captured the audience of Colombians, because everyone was on their phones, stuck inside or bored as hell.
Mm.
And I started drawing. I wasn't drawing about Colombia when I first arrived. I was drawing sort of these very sensual, kind of tropical, poetic, artistic, kind of sometimes sexy drawings, and they were
Mm.
really popular with the Latinas particularly.
Hmm.
Um, and then when I started drawing about Colombian culture, I got this huge wave of followers, and I thought, oh, can I still draw about these sexy kind of stuff, or can I draw about culture? And then I thought, okay, well, sex is still part of life, and still, you
Yeah.
know, food, sex, music, all the good things in life.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I focus on is all the things that I think are beautiful about life, but obviously through the lens of living in Colombia or
Mm.
a so
And
yeah,
how's it been for you? Because so now you're an immigrant in
yeah,
Colombia. And
yeah, not a tourist
how,
anymore.
what?
Not a tourist, an
Yeah, not
immigrant.
a tourist anymore. Exactly. And in a way, I think it's so interesting that like to be loved and accepted, you almost, not that you did this consciously, but like you like
Mm,
double down on your immigrantness, right? In a
yeah,
way, because
yeah,
everything that you draw about also works because it comes from this outside perspective, which I think is
yeah.
so cool,
I think
right?
some people, like some people said to me, "Oh, do you think your drawings would have had that impact had you been Colombian. And I said, I don't think a Colombian would have drawn the
Right,
drawings that I drew.
exactly. But that's
Not
what I
because
mean, because you wouldn't
I
have,
wouldn't have seen them in that way. Like they're normal. It's normal
yes,
to them. So they probably think,
yeah,
oh yeah, we do it shot cheese with hot chocolate. So what? Big deal. And I think that that's why sometimes outside eyes of an artist in any country, it's happened all through
exactly.
music history, and
Right, right.
it sort of changes the space perspective a little bit, tilts it, so people go, oh yeah,
Hmm.
we are funny, or we are weird, or we
Right,
are.
exactly. It's
So
almost
that's
like you can't look directly at a star because then you can't see it, right? You have to look next to
yes,
it. That's what it made me think
yeah,
of to see it more clearly. That's what
yeah,
your drawings kind of made me think of. When I look at that drawing
yeah.
of the saying, "Don't give the papaya," right? Which is like, don't
Don't
like
give
wear
don't show
flashy
off
stuff.
jewelry or money
Yeah, because
because
you'll
you
get
robbed.
robbed.
Yeah, papaya is the. But it's funny though, because like when I was living in Australia, I wasn't drawing about Australian culture. Like I
No, of course. Why would
because
you? Yeah.
why would I? It's normal to me, and people will sometimes say to me, I've got I get a few people, I get some hate like most people
Hmm.
on
Of
Instagram.
course. Yeah.
But one of the things that people often say is, why are you drawing about our culture or my culture? It's not your culture to draw about. And I thought, well, it's like my diary of learning about your culture in a way that I believe is respectful and celebratory. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Whereas if
Hmm.
I was poking fun at like, oh, Colombians do this, how bad is that? Or none of it's like that. It's like, how good is this?
Yeah.
They
Or
is
if it
or
was in this tone of like, look at these people, or
these
like, look how
Latinos.
cute
Yeah,
this is,
exactly.
or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, exactly. But I think that that's what's so beautiful about it. In the beginning, when you did the opening to the podcast, I was actually going to ask you about it. You said you would put Vegemite and dulce de leche, did you say?
Yeah, the Arequipe. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is dulce de leche.
Right, in your immigrant gem, and there's a saying that's mitades,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Which can you explain to us what
yeah.
exactly that means?
So Dos Mitades is a series of drawings I just started doing to kind of capture the immigrant experience that I've felt, but for Colombians. So it
Mm,
was like, okay, there's many Colombians living in USA,
mm,
particularly New York, Miami, and places like that. So I started with a drawing. It was like half a hot dog and half an empanada, and a
mhm.
woman a woman kind of sitting on top, like half of her body was on one side, half of her body. So it was like half of her was in the USA, half was in Colombia. It was a very simple image, nothing kind of wildly weird about it, but
Mm,
it made such an impact because it kind of visually captured how people in Colombia, in USA, feel about being Colombian. It's like,
right.
yes, I live in USA, and yes, I love USA and what it's given me and the opportunities and the foods, but I'm also Colombian, and
Hmm.
I never really understood that um, dilemma, or not dilemma, but that sort of sense until I became an immigrant myself, because that's exactly what I've become. So yes, I'm half Australian, but I'm happy here and I love what Colombia has given me. So I think that's the beautiful thing about immigration, isn't it?
Right.
It's sort of like
And that's
it,
sort of the artificial concept of national identities, I think,
yeah,
that are tied to, that you're only allowed to claim if you
yes,
were born somewhere. And it
yeah.
doesn't
And
make
it's like,
sense.
what are you? Is it where you were born? Is it where your bloodline was from? Is it
Right.
where you grew up? Is it
Right.
where you settled down and have a family? Like there's so like it really like when I get a Colombian passport, eventually in the next couple of years, like technically makes me Colombian. It doesn't
Mm.
make me Colombian in my blood, but I've got a son now in Colombia
Mm.
and he's Colombian.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Amazing. That's so
yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
so I feel like, oh, my blood is now linked with this place. So it's just been this really cool adventure. And when I left Australia, that was exactly what I was wanting. I was wanting an adventure in my life as an artist that would challenge me, that would inspire me, that would throw surprises at me, that I think that just being in Australia wasn't surprising me anymore, because
Mm.
like just that it was the country I knew, and I'd had great times there. I'd had made lots of animated films and had success with that, but I was getting to the stage where I'm like, it feels like every week's kind of the same and every year's kind of the same. Like I need to change something up. And so by doing that, I ended up, you know, ending up here, and it's been like 4 of the best years of my life personally, and and work-wise and creative-wise and relationship-wise. So it's, it just shows you in life, I think, you're never too old to mix up your life if you want to, mix
True.
it up.
Very
If you
true.
if you can, you know what I mean?
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
And also, I think what's so cool about what you're doing is that Colombia, in particular, is a country that has like so many of these like stereotypes attached to
Yeah.
it, you know, with,
Stigmas.
yeah. And people kind
Mm.
of go, oh, I know what that place is. It's cocaine and
Yeah.
this, or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever people go to immediately when
Yeah.
they think of Colombia. And then here you are making this like story picture world, illustrating all the beautiful sort of delightful, surprising, and unique
Yeah.
parts of the culture that people don't
Totally.
know about.
And
Yeah.
and
And
that's
it feels
what.
like we're discovering it with you, I think
Yeah, but
also, you
because I'm
know?
discovering it, so I feel like
Right.
because I'm discovering it, and that's authentic, and that's really me discovering it. It's not me being cynical or planning everything. Like,
Right.
like most of the stuff is just, okay, I'll try something and then see what people think of it. But yeah, I think the stigma thing was really interesting, because even people within my own friends or family in Australia would make kind of little, what they would think is jokes about cocaine or Pablo Escobar or whatever it is. And then when you meet people here and you come here and you explore the culture and the histories and the recent history, because it's very recent, and
Mm,
you go, wow, that's trauma, like, that
mm,
people have faced for the last 30, 40 years, and people's family members kidnapped, killed, disappeared, policemen killed, that kind of thing. So it's not like this far away thing like World War II or something like that. It's like really recent, and I
mm,
think when you have an understanding of that, it's not funny. Those jokes about cocaine just aren't funny anymore, because you
mm,
go, oh, not original.
mm.
Yes, they do sometimes make content themselves about that stuff in a funny way, but it's not the only thing. You know what I mean? And I think it's such a small part of what Colombia is now, particularly. Like Colombia 30 years ago, it was obviously that, but even back then, there was so much more going on. That the
Of
news
course.
wasn't, the beautiful music and the food and the culture. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's like the media focuses on the war zones and the horrible things, doesn't focus on the beautiful culture that thrives, and that kind of
Doesn't
stuff. So yeah.
focus on the tit heads, which is one of my
Yeah.
favorite drawings. Careteta. Oh my God, amazing. It's so good.
I,
As a comedian, you're like, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes, of course.
that makes sense. You see
Yeah.
someone, you're like, head looks like a tit.
Tit head. I have a joke where I talk about nipples, and I always say, most nipples are front of breast, unless you're Mike Pence and your whole face just looks like a nipple. I think he looks like a nipple, so I mean, he's not bald, but he has a careteta kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's a vibe. It's a
It's
vibe.
a
It's just
vibe.
like some people have a scrotum vibe, some people have
Yes,
a.
some people have a scrotum vibe.
Mm,
Exactly. But because you see things in illustrations or
yeah,
in you see
that's
the
how
world
I.
in
That's my
cartoons.
mental illness.
My friend says I speak in cartoon. He's like, you
Yeah,
speak in cartoon voices. Like you have
that's
different
amazing.
fonts for different words in your sentences.
What's that? What's that Comic Sans? That's
Yes,
your
exactly.
those like, yeah.
Do you have a favorite Colombian expression? Or
Oh,
like
so I've got a
two
I've
or
got a book
five?
of them. I've released a book of 100 Colombian expressions and words.
And people can get that on your website?
Yeah,
I'm
people
like,
are not
people, I mean me.
yeah, that's not on
Like,
my
I know.
website, but they can either get it through buscalibre.com, or
Okay.
they can contact me. I've got some copies that I can sign and sell, but that's done really well because it's a kind of a collection of some of the more popular ones.
Mm,
I think one that I love, just because it's it's indicative of an aspect of the culture. So it's called Puro Tilin Tilin Nada de Paleta, which means all dingling and no ice cream, no popsicles, no popsicles. So
how do
like
you
on the
say
ice
it?
cream, it's puro, like Puro, like
Yeah,
puro,
puro.
tilin tilin, Tilin,
Tilin,
which is
tilin.
ding ding ding. Uh, nada de paleta, no paleta, no
Nada de
popsicle.
paleta. Okay,
So
what does
that
that mean?
it basically means when someone's all talk and no action. So if
Oh,
you're, say if you're flirting with someone
that's
and they're
so
like,
good.
yeah, because it happens a lot. So you're flirting with someone and they're like, oh, well, wish you were here, and then you go, okay, I'll come over, and they're like, that's puro tilin tilin. No, there's no paleta. You're not getting the popsicle. So there's so many ways you can use it, but socially, it's like it's a super Colombian thing because they're so charming and they're so flirtatious generally in that they often paint themselves into these corners where like, I didn't want to go to that party, now I'm invited to that. I didn't want to do this, and now I'm like, so it's like puro tilin tilin, nada de paleta. That's one.
So how would you illustrate that? What's like
So I drew because they've got these ice cream sellers here that walk along with like a little cart
cards?
with
Yes.
wheels, a little
Yeah.
bell. It's like it's like the automated version of the ice cream truck.
Right.
And so I drew a woman walking with this popsicle little cart, and she was going, paletas, paletas, and then inside you can see that there's like moths flying out. There's no ice cream.
Great.
So it's like I'm always trying to think of like how, because there's some great expressions that you think, how can I draw this? Like there's this one expression called ahorita, or a word called ahorita, ahorita, and you said, or Colombian, because they use it all the time. It's like, what does it mean? It's like it means soon, not now, but like soon, in a bit. It's like saying in a bit kind of thing.
Okay.
But they've got this word for it, and they use it all the time. And I thought, how do I draw that? Like, how can I make that interesting? So I thought, like playing with time, a turtle, like because the turtle was slow, and then I drew this turtle sitting there eating like potato chips and saying like ahorita, like yeah. So that was really So that's kind of, I like working out how to visually interpret these things in a way that makes it cute, funny, and gets the point across.
How long does one of those drawings take you?
The expression ones are less time. They're probably sort of 25 minutes or something like that.
Do you draw them by hand or on
digitally?
On
digitally, but by hand digitally.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I used to draw everything on paper, and then I bought an iPad before I came to Colombia, and that's just been like revolutionized my workflow and everything. But and for Instagram, it's really good because they're very clear, crisp, colorful. Instagram's good stuff, whereas on paper it doesn't really read well on Instagram. So that's how I go about it. But I usually sort of do a sketch first on the iPad in pencil and try to work it out, and then usually 20-25 minutes. But then I do other drawings where there's more detail that could take an hour or 2 hours and 3 hours, depending on the drawing.
Right. Do you have a favorite Australian one?
Oh, there's some really good ones. I was thinking of one the other day. It was don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining.
Wow, that's great.
That might be used in the States too, but it's a really good one.
No, that's way too rude for the States.
The Australian ones are very kind of like, I would say they're very like rough, like kind of,
because it was all prisoners. I can see this like Scottish prisoner yelling that at some other fucking.
Tell me back and tell me it's raining.
Yeah, exactly.
And it basically means don't tell me that thing. I'm not stupid. Like it's like I know what you. It's like I didn't come down in the last shower. It's the same as that.
Yeah, don't sell me. What is that? There's this expression. Don't sell me the cat in the bag. No, I don't know. So, isn't there something about cat?
But Australian football is like.
I've been to an Australian footy game.
Oh, they're amazing. I mean, I think it's the best sport in the world, personally. But it's hilarious.
I don't know about that, but it's crazy.
It's crazy.
I felt like I was in a dream. Like it was in Perth in the stadium. And I felt like it was like one of those dreams you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I dreamt that I was at a football match, but everybody was wearing really tight little shorts and
punching each other and running into each other. It's bonkers. And that's why
everybody drinks coffee, which is so funny. Yes, everybody was drinking coffee.
That's interesting. Some of the stadiums have banned alcohol
I think there was also alcohol, but because Australia is such a coffee place, they had
and it's during
coffee
the
everywhere.
day. Yeah, Perth, exactly. So it's a coffee thing. But there's so many expressions used in that sport. Like, if like it's a weak player and he's not very physically strong, they'll say, "Oh, he couldn't pull the skin off a custard."
That's great. That's great.
He couldn't punch his way out of a paper bag, a wet paper bag.
Okay, I love that.
There's expressions that come up, usually the older commentators from another era, and I just think, oh wow, my mum brings up some hilarious.
Have you ever thought of doing the drawings for other
I think
cultures?
Australia, I'm not sure. It's like in Australia, we've got similar publications that are sort of like that I grew up with. There was one called All Right Vegemite Fire Out Brussels Sprout, and there were these books that were like kids' books, and there were funny expressions, and that's probably where I've got the
Right.
But in Colombia, that didn't really exist in a visual form. They have books of expressions, just the words.
Right.
But they didn't have anything, particularly on Instagram, that was like what I was doing. Whereas if I did the same with Australia, I'm not even sure that it would be successful. Right. So it goes to show that
because they're not as funny, are they? They're funny, but it's funny because when you hear those expressions, they're interesting and funny, but they don't have the same sense of humor, right?
No,
like it's a different sensibility.
Australian sense of humor is more like the British sense of humor.
Right.
It's very dry.
Yeah.
Very sarcastic kind of thing.
Yeah. There's nothing about lettuces being fresh. No.
Whereas
be fresh as a lettuce.
The American sense of humor, as you would know, is like rooted in like vaudeville and a lot of like Jewish humor and stuff, which is completely different to British humor, which is like that's where you get shows like Seinfeld and all those. You wouldn't have got that in England, you know. It's like
but I feel like expressions in the US aren't as big of a thing. They're not used as much. No, I don't feel like I feel
like in the US it's more about like buzzwords.
Right, exactly. You know We're making up verbs. In English, that's the cool thing. You can make up verbs. I remember once I was on the subway platform and this guy walked past me that I know, and I like stood behind a pillar. I like kind of like hid behind a pillar. And the next day I bumped into him again and he was like, "You pillar dodged me yesterday." And I was like, this is what's cool about the English language, that you can make up a word like pillar dodged, you know?
And I think the African American cultures have the funniest expressions.
Yes,
like
that's true. Yeah.
And they end up in hip hop, they end up in rap, in comedy. And so when you think about Urban Dictionary and all that sort of stuff, that's a lot of the funniest ones on Urban Dictionary, like African American or Latino, like cultures.
Yeah, totally.
Kind of sort of similar in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
They bully each other in a nice way.
And in German, I'm German. I was born in Germany and I grew up here, but the German expressions are all kind of like serious and philosophical and kind of like macabre too. Like, you know, if somebody's particularly funny, they say, "What happened? You ate a clown for breakfast?" Yikes.
Good one. I like that one. It was funny because when I used to do a lot of animated short films and we used to enter them in different animation festivals in different countries, you would see where things would hit and where they wouldn't hit. And I remember with Germany, we did this one animated film about these people that are gorging themselves eating every kind of animal as a dish, like the most disgusting kind of thing you can imagine. And then at one point in the film, they all start to vomit. So it's like all these animals, so that are coming out but alive. So it's like vomiting.
And the Germans love that.
Germans just it got into like 10 German festivals. And I remember thinking, why do they love that? And then I realized,
grim.
Yeah, because it's dark and Germans love meat. Yes. And they love kind of like stories about cautionary things, like cautionary tales. And then a lot of the artwork we were using was like influenced by like German collage artists from like World War II and that kind of stuff. So then you see, every culture responds to different things visually, to different things. Like I remember we showed the same film in South Korea, and I thought they translated this into Korean, but like rhyming. It's a rhyming verse. How they do? Does this make any sense? So the whole
Wow.
audience sat there completely silent the whole time, didn't laugh. And I thought, oh no, this like they didn't get it. And then afterwards, they all mobbed me wanting my autograph. So it's like they, it was
Right.
like either they got it or they didn't care or whatever. But it was really interesting seeing those differences.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's so fascinating anyway, because, you know, we're all individuals and we're all, you know, unique people, but then we do sort of, you know, where the places we grow up, the language we speak, influences the way that we see the world, the way that we relate to each other, and forms culture, right? And it
Yeah.
does kind of, yeah,
And then
tie people
then
together.
when you start mixing, like you were born in Germany, you come to USA, and then you kind of go do your own thing, and then I come from Australia
Right,
and come here and do my own thing. So it's like, and
right,
everything is influencing something or someone. Like there could
right.
be one little Colombian kid or something, or someone sees my thing, and then that inspires them to do something in a different way, or like you never know. Like with music, it happens. I think a lot of people talk about cultural appropriation now, and everyone's sort of
Right.
very big on that. But I think a lot of people are forgetting the cultural celebration side of artists.
Yes.
Like when an artist taps into a different, like David Bowie or whoever, like it's like
Yeah.
that's what they do. Artists, like, they can't just draw from their own country. They can't just draw from their own backyard. They have to explore. And I think that as long as it's done in a way that is well researched and inclusive and respectable and not degrading, like that's not appropriation to me.
Right. No, I agree. And I think that beyond artists, migration, and it's the
Yeah,
most natural thing that humans do, you know,
yeah.
moving from places and going, oh, what is this spice?
What is
Let me put
this?
it on my type of meat and then make a new dish out of it.
Yeah, and that's like
And
the cheese that, like you talking about the cheese and the hot chocolate, like
yeah.
that is a specific example of a creation that wouldn't have existed without the Spanish colonial invaders
Mm,
and without the indigenous people who were here, because the indigenous Colombians had cacao, so they would make really bitter
right.
um, hot chocolate basically, but they didn't have cows, they didn't have um, a cream and cheese until the Spanish came, and then we're like, oh, this is bitter, let's put some cheese in it.
Do you get a lot of people who say, why are you doing this? You're not Colombian. This is
Yeah,
ours.
a lot. I get
And
a lot
how
of
do
that.
you respond to that? Do you ignore those people? Do you address them? Does it hurt you?
it it kind of hurts sometimes because I love Colombia so much, and because I'm doing it out of a sheer like a genuine love. It doesn't hurt me, like I don't go and cry about it, but I think, isn't that sad that the world's become so cynical that
Mm,
people assume that if you're doing that you're doing it for this reason, or that you're trying to exploit, or
take something
you know
away.
yeah, and I know that those things do happen and they do go on, and that's why everyone then gets painted with the same brush. But I think, yeah, I mean, I encounter a lot of that. I mean, I think being a foreigner in any country and talking about that, you're gonna get people who hate on you for the very fact that you're not from there.
Eddie White of Adelaide, by way of the pandemic, and now Bogota and Cartagena, Colombia.
Yeah.
Are you ready to play the poll questionnaire?
Well, I love a good game. I love a good poll. So
If you were president of
yeah.
Colombia,
Mm-hmm.
what Colombian food would you ban?
Oh, that's a really good one, because there's some really weird, which I haven't tried because I'm just like, no, I don't want to try that. Others which I can't eat because I can't eat lactose because I'm lactose intolerant. So let's forget about those ones. I would say salt on mango. So
Salt on
they
mango.
they have this mango, this green mango they get. So it's like a like almost like a raw mango, you know, and they chop it up, they shred it up into these sort of shreds of crunchy green mango, which by itself is like, okay, it's sort of tart. And then they add salt and lemon, and I'm just like, no. It's like, you know, that sort of face. But
Coming from
it.
someone who eats Vegemite, I'm
I know,
sure it's
I'm
valid.
a complete
If you could deport one Colombian person, who would you deport?
Oh, if I could deport one Colombian person who's alive. Oh, no, let's say I'm going to deport the person who stole my wallet out of my pocket before the Bad Bunny concert. I was in a crowd crush of trying to get in, and they took my wallet, which I think is just low, you know, when someone's in that position. So I'm going to deport that one person, whoever they are.
What's the most Colombian thing you've ever done?
Oh, I would say the most Colombian thing I've done would be ride a motorbike with no helmet and go and swim in a river on the same day. You know, that kind of thing. It's like there's this beautiful freedom when you travel around the country.
Well, I guess this is the last question. For me, it would be very important to know if you, by any chance, know how I can meet David Hasselhoff. I am serious.
I
Both laughing.
kind of think I'm connected to some famous people through, you know, the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing.
I've almost done 100 episodes of this podcast just to figure out how to meet him. This is why I have people on. I keep hoping that somebody will say, I know him. Let me call him right now.
Someone will. I mean, someone will at some point. Like you could.
Can't you just draw him in Colombia and then he'll see? Draw him with the tit face.
I'm not sure he's a huge cultural icon here.
So, people can order your book by hitting you up on Instagram.
Yep. If they want a signed copy, I do sign them, but obviously they have to pay for shipping. But I'm not sure if there's any copies left on buscalibre.com, but they can have a look there. But it's been very popular, and it's sort of become like a coffee table book over here. And it was my first book.
So cool.
Really cool.
So cool. And then now you have a clothing line.
Yeah, now I've got this clothing line called Vibras Antiguas, which means like old vibes.
Do you want to leave us with anything Colombian, any Colombian saying or anything like that before we go?
Ooh, I think one thing I'm learning at the moment, having a 5-month-old, is all the different expressions they've got for like poop, which
I love that.
Like if a baby's pooped its nappy, it's poposiado.
Poposiado?
Poopy. Yeah, like a poopy diaper is muy poposiado. And they've got fulca, which is like, he's done a fulca. And I was like, what? He's done a fulca. What's a fulca? It's a full cagada, which is like full shit, like a big shit. And then they've got triple fulca, which is like the triple version of that. So there's all these versions of poop, and I'm learning them through being a dad and changing nappies. It's been like being a dad of a Colombian it's been like another learning experience.
Amazing. Go check Eddie out. Look at all his stuff. Check out his clothing, but go follow him on Instagram, most importantly, and you'll have such an amazing time every single day. You'll find something new and fun and funny. You'll be sending it to your friends. I guarantee it. And thank you for being on. Oh my God. Give it up for Eddie White, everybody. Go check him out. Thank you so much for listening. You guys, I love you so much. Thank you to our patrons. You know who you are. You're the best. Send us your questions, your answers to the poll questionnaire, and we'll read them out. And check out Eddie. We love you. Goodbye.